So when you look at where you got to in terms of the work that you're doing today with Enagic and the journey that you went on, you saw the health benefits, you saw how important water is. Of course, you're starting and you got into it, understanding the science behind it. And,
Hmm.
why don't we talk a little bit about understanding water? So Stephanie and I have been on water for probably 20 years. We were into a different product. I don't remember what it was, but we've always understood water. And for
Hmm.
20 years, we've drank water. We've understood, alkaline based and pH balanced water. And we really kind of have always embraced it. It's just part of our life. We don't really think about it much these days. But why don't you give
Hmm.
us a little bit of science around what you learned on your journey about the importance of water? That would be helpful.
Yeah, definitely. So it all started with, first of all, me not knowing anything about the water, listening to my mom, drinking it, experiencing it, and noticing that it was doing something. So
Mhm.
then I was like, okay, well, something's happening here. It tastes better. It tastes different. I feel good. Energy levels through the roof. So there's all these like immediate benefits. But most importantly, for my personal testimonial, is that my stomach stuff went away.
Mm.
And that was like night and day. Like my quality of life was that it was probably 60% out of 100 for 10 plus years, not even knowing anywhere near what 100% felt like. And then as I started to heal from this and get better from this and so on and so on, I started to increase that closer to 100%. I'm like, wow, this is so different, right? And I think a lot of people out there, they don't even realize what their real energy levels are, what their potential is. They're operating so far away from that they're not even close to great or exceptional or outstanding. So that was the first part for me. Then I started understanding, okay, well, what is the water really doing? And what it started off with was looking at the three most common reasons why people are sick. So the three most common reasons why people are sick are acidosis, so they're overly acidic. They're dehydrated, chronically dehydrated, like way far past dehydrated. They're like permanently there.
Mhm.
Um, and the final one is inflammation. So we have all these fancy different ways of diseases, calling them XYZ, all these things that are like man-made labels. But when we go and strip that down to the root cause within our bodies and our cells, most of them are actually caused by those three problems. So when I understood that, and by no way am I a scientist or a doctor or anything like this, is very layman's terms explanation. But
Yep.
I was like, okay, that does make sense. We're eating acidic foods. Our environment is very high stress, pollution, lack of sleep. There's all these things from what we eat to what we drink. It's all kind of setting us up to fail in general society. And I'm like, that makes a lot of sense. Not to mention that typically bottled water, tap water, it doesn't taste very good. It's not appetizing. It tastes like metal. It makes you bloated. It's kind of nasty. So if you had to choose between nasty water and like a margarita, you're like, I have a margarita or a latte or a cappuccino or a cup of tea or a juice. It's almost like anything but water because water is so freaking nasty most of the time. So it's not something people want. Whereas this water tastes pristine. So when I first had my sip, I was like, it just felt light, smooth. The best way I could describe it is it tasted like how water is supposed to taste. And
Mhm.
that's the best way I can explain it. Where I taste, I'm like, wait a second, that tastes delicious. Like I choose this over all the other stuff now.
Mhm.
But whatever I've been drinking that was water, I don't know what the stuff that was. That was like some contaminated weird stuff. It's how it felt, right? So it started there. And then I realized that the machine that you purchase that connects to your tap water, the three key benefits of this water is the counterbalance of the three main root causes of illness. So I'm like, okay, so the water is pH alkaline, but it's not alkaline how it would be in the grocery store when you buy a bottle of water at Whole Foods and it says pH 9.5 on the label. It's
Mhm.
not the same thing because one, you can change with chemicals. So you can add baking soda and other things to water and raise the pH. That's not what this machine does. This machine actually electrically alters the pH and it's alkalized water. And the alkalization process, the ionization process, creates molecular hydrogen, H2. Now, H2 goes in the body and it's a free radical scavenger. So there's a lot of positively charged molecules in the body that are actually from the environment, the food, the acidity, the things that we're consuming. So they're searching for something to get released from the system. So when you drink the water, negative and positive connects and you flush it out of your body. And because we're made mostly of water, this is one of the easiest things someone can change, instead of saying, oh, go raw vegan, or, this really extreme shifts in lifestyle and diet that most people can't stick to. This is just change your water and drink enough of it every day, 3-4 liters a day, and you'll see some magic start to happen. That also solves the chronic dehydration problem, the acidity problem, and the inflammation problem. So naturally, people really start to shift from sick, overweight, unhealthy, inflamed, red in the face, puffy, all the things, to shifting over to having better health. So that's how it started for me. And then, funny enough, when we got our machine, my mom got a machine. She is not necessarily a businesswoman or great at communication or any of those kinds of things. English is a second language for her. But she has a really, really big heart, and she really cares about people, and she really wants the best for others, including me, but her friends, her family, her colleagues. So she started asking these people, hey, I'm just curious, have you ever heard about this Kangen water before? And mind you, this was 15 years ago. And every single person said no. And she's just like, this is so strange. Like, where has this been for 35 years? I don't understand. It was such a weird thing. So she says, would you be willing to give it a try for free? My son tried it for free. I tried it for free. My brother tried it for free. And we all had amazing results. Would you be willing to try it for free? And just let us know if it does something for you. And we were genuinely curious at this stage, because we're like, maybe it's just us. Maybe we're some kind of special person. Like, because our skepticism was so high, we needed like so much evidence that this was real, that we just kept trying to find more evidence. So then at this point in my life, I was in a really, like I mentioned, a dark place. I lost my father to cancer 8 months before we found the water. I was grieving. I was sleeping in, smoking dope, like no job, no direction. I was just in a really dark place, like this depression. And then the water came into our life, and it was the first positive thing that I was actually excited about. I'm like, man, this water just makes me feel good. Like, feeling good is the real currency. Like, if I feel good, oh my gosh, I could take on the world, right? I started to kind of shift this negative energy into like opening up my ideas, like, maybe I could go get a job. Maybe it's enough laying on the couch watching TV all day, kind of thing. And right at that time, my mom says to me, she goes, hey, listen, you're basically a bum sleeping on the couch, not paying rent. The least you could do is fill up water for these people that are saying yes to trying it. I was like, I really don't want to talk to people, mom, that's kind of annoying, but fine, fair enough. I'll do this for you. So that's how it started. And she started sending these strangers to our home. They're coming with those massive, like 18-liter bottles that you have at the break room at your job or something like this. Or sometimes people have them in their kitchen. They're coming with these empty, right? And I'm like, not in the mood to talk to people. So I'm looking at their bottle, and I'm like, man, that's going to take at least 15, 20 minutes to fill up. What are we going to fricking talk about? Like, I'm like so annoyed by this thought. So I came up with a strategy. I'm like, my strategy is ask you a question, and then I shut up and listen for 20 minutes, and then you can leave. That was my strategy. So then I started asking people, well, do you have any health problems? That's, I thought like that would be a pretty good question. And I was so shocked that everybody had something going on. But when I looked at them, they didn't look sick. They didn't look like something was going on. But they're like, yeah, I got back pain. I got this. I got a psoriasis, arthritis, all the things you can imagine. People are listing off their problems. And I just kind of went, uh-oh, like I opened a can of worms, because I'm not a doctor. I can't tell you anything. So I just go, oh, wow, thanks for sharing. Well, let me know if the water helps. That was all I did. And then people would leave. And what was incredible was they came to our place 2 or 3 times a week. And we always make this joke these days that it looked like we were selling some kind of drugs, because people would come with these jugs, and it was all day. You know what I mean? These massive jugs, loading them in the trunk of their car. And there's this like teenager in the house just giving away water. It was very weird. And eventually people started to come and say, you don't understand. You changed my life. This water changed my life. My this is gone. My this is improved. And I'm kind of just shocked. And then where everything sort of started to change was people asked us, hey, look, are you the only ones like in Canada that have one of these things? Like, can we get one? And we didn't know there was any type of referral program from the company or anything. So We sent people to the guy we got her from, and that's when we got excuse me, that's when we got introduced to the business.
Well, and isn't that interesting though? But let's go back on a couple things. First and foremost, I'm curious in your experience back then, to the degree you remember, like when you're sick, when you're not feeling well, when your body's toxic for whatever reason it's toxic. We're all a little bitchy. It changes your mood. It
Mm,
changes your frame of reference
100%.
to the world, because you're either
Mhm,
in constant pain or discomfort, or your body's just out of sync. When you
mhm.
were starting to drink that water back then, and I do have a, I mean, part of this question is I know the answer because I'll share a little bit about my own experience over the years. But what did you start to notice the shift in mood, or was it because you saw that you could monetize it that all of a sudden you got a little happier? And I say that a little bit in jest.
No.
Give me a little bit of
Yeah,
the
no, that's a
background of
great
that.
question.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a great question. No, it had nothing to do with the monetization at all. It actually had to do with, like, my mental energy was almost focusing on the pain I was in. So it was this constant, like, reminder, like, oh, I don't feel good. I don't feel good. Like, what can I do? What can I eat? Everything that I did, from food to eating to how I laid on the couch, was all around trying to minimize this pain. So I would, find out these different ways of laying on the couch with, like, a pillow between my legs and, like, in this weird fetal position, then that it would ease the pain. So all of a sudden I didn't feel that, and I'm like, I have mental capacity to think
Mhm.
about something else.
Mhm.
And so that's where it started. I'm like, well, like, wow, like, the sky is nice outside. It's like I didn't even notice the beauty of life because I was so in this dark place and this pain. So as it went away, I started to just kind of shift to a neutral mood, not happy, not upset, not grumpy, just kind of neutral. Then it stayed there for a little bit. Then when I started to be of service to others, which was actually by accident because my mom sort of made me. But when I became of service to others, I dreaded when the doorbell rang and someone wanted water. I dreaded it probably for the first 2 weeks, maybe a month. I was like, oh, eye roll kind of thing. And then all of a sudden they started coming back with the stories. Hey, I feel better. And then all of a sudden it was like ding dong. And I was like, oh my gosh, I'm excited. Like, what are they going to share with me today? What is the change? What is the update? How are they feeling better? And so then I started to get excited and happy, not because of any business. We didn't even know about any monetization at this point. It was just the stories, the testimonials, the thought of, like, my stomach stuff improved. We purchased a machine. We're giving it away for free. And now these people are having these incredible results.
Mhm.
This is really cool because up until that point in my life, I never really did anything where I had this direct impact on another person. So I didn't even know what that was like. So I had this introduction of, like, wait a second, I really love helping people, man. Like, I really love the stories. I love the direct face to face interaction. And at the time, I didn't know what it was going to lead to, but it opened up this whole new part of myself of, like, I need more of this in my life. And that's how it transitioned.
The reason I, like I
Mm,
say, a little bit tongue in cheek and I joke about it, but, many, many years ago, and I'm going to say I was 30 ish. So that's a long time ago these days. But, the point of it is that I was really struggling back then in terms of I wasn't sleeping well. I was never really quite feeling well. I was very irritable often.
mm,
And I had just met Stephanie back in those days, and we started talking about some things, and I neither of us were big believers in you know going through to a doctor, for example. And I didn't know why. She was very clear. She was far for. She really introduced me to a holistic world of health and looking after yourself. And I went to a naturopath. In that whole context, we did blood tests and we did all sorts of things. And within that, the naturopath, did things like we adjusted coffee and I was drinking green tea and I was doing all sorts of things. But that's when I first got introduced to the conversation of water. And we literally spent, I don't know, it was several $1,000s, I want to say, or at least a couple of thousand on some version of a water machine. I just don't, I want to say it was Athena. I don't remember what it was. Anyways, the point is that I started to see how it shifted. I was feeling better overall. I was sleeping better. And although I'd cleaned up a lot of things in my life, so I couldn't necessarily attribute it to the water, I just knew that I also craved that water. Something that you
mhm.
said that was interesting is the taste of good water is it sets a benchmark for how you expect water to
Mm,
taste. It's why it's hard drinking water out of a tap, or to your point, uh, even drinking bottled water. And I'll throw Dasani under the bus. I'd rather go
mhm.
thirsty than drink a bottle
It's
of
so
Dasani
true,
water.
man.
So I call it Coke's barrel swill, and so that is throwing Dasani under the bus. But that's how I
That's
feel about
funny.
it. Anyways,
Yeah.
that's how passionate we are about our own health. Now I look at that. Now I look this many years later, and I'm like incredibly healthy. I don't even remember the last time I got a cold. It was years ago, and
Mm.
I know it was a stressful time. And we just are healthy all of the time. And I know that it a lot to do with lifestyle, but overall, we also are drinking that water.